Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargav. Welcome to our budget special on HW News. The Finance Minister has just concluded her budget speech for Budget 2021. The budget comes at a time when the government, by its own admission, has said that it would be a budget like never before. It was expected to be a budget which one has just not seen because it comes at a time when we are facing crisis which we had never seen, which is the COVID pandemic. The COVID pandemic has been said to be a once in a century event. As we said, it's an unprecedented event, and the budget was expected to come with unprecedented measures in order to tackle the crisis that it has created on the economy. It was meant to be one with unconventional measures to rectify the economy from a survival mode to a revival mode. It was meant to look into the fact that growth has suffered immensely, such that the economy is going to contract in this financial year. And it was meant to come at a time when demand had to be reinvigorated in the economy such that the consumer spends and the economy grows. This was the background, and thus the finance minister, by her own admission, has said that it's going to be a budget like never before and that it would be a vibrant budget. The budget comes in a background where growth had been suffering. We have witnessed the economy contracting. It contracted by 23.9% in the first quarter of this financial year, and the year is expected to end with a contraction of 7.7% as per the government's estimate. We think it would be more, but this is the government's estimate. It also comes when joblessness has been around in a big way. Because of COVID, about 180 million jobs were lost. Out of that, 40 million jobs have yet to come back, and unemployment, of course, persists. The budget also comes in a backdrop when investment has been languishing in the economy for years together. It has been simply stranded because neither the producer nor the consumer has been truly confident of where is the economy's growth headed to. The budget also comes at a time when the index of industrial production has been dipping. Core sector growth has been going down quarter after quarter. The core sector consists of 8 very important industries. They include cement, steel, oil and gas, petroleum, fertilizer, etc. And for the last 6 consecutive months, its index has been dipping. Exports remain uncertain. Imports have fallen because consumption has fallen. The NPA crisis remains unresolved. Banks have been uncertain and nervous in giving fresh loans. The government's treasury has been empty because tax collections have dipped. They have not been up to the target, and expenditure has been mounting because in order to trigger demand in the economy, the government needs to spend. Fiscal deficit has been high and the government needs to continue to let it be high. Fiscal stimulus has been needed for the afflicted sectors, especially for the MSME and the informal sectors. At this time, confidence of the consumer remains low, confidence of the producer remains low, and that explains the poor demand in the economy, even though the government claims that green shoots have come back. The government has been unable to meet its disinvestment target. The current financial year's disinvestment target was to the tune of 2.1 lakh crores. And against this, all that the government has been able to raise so far is just about 19,000 crores. Its target has fallen flat. And while all this has been happening, the country needs to spend on account of COVID. The country needs to spend on account of defense. It needs to spend on account of infrastructure in order to kickstart growth in the economy. It is because of this that the budget was expected to be, as the government says, a once in a lifetime kind of a budget which was meant to be like never before. This was the background or the backdrop of the budget that has just been presented by the government. In her remarks, the finance minister made some pertinent points. She said that in the post-COVID world, like in the case of World War II, the entire paradigm is going to change in terms of strategy, in terms of economy, in terms of international relationships also. She gave the government, as expected, huge marks in respect of management of the economy during the COVID crisis. She also made the figures of the MSP purchasing declared in order to say that this government has been spending more and more on the MSP in order to support the farmer. She gave these figures in a hard-hitting way to make a point that the farmer has not been worse off during the Modi government. She also then made certain announcements of road projects which noticeably were all meant for the pole-bound states of West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Kerala in particular. She surprisingly did not speak anything about the migrant labor crisis that the government faced, that the country faced, which was shameful and shocking. She thankfully did not speak about the claim of the government that it has been a V-shaped recovery, which the government seems to be obsessed about. And she, of course, spoke nothing about the auto fuel prices, which continue to remain extremely high, or rather at an all-time high. These were some of the pertinent remarks that the finance minister made while presenting today's budget. Let's go to the highlights of the budget, and that will probably give you an idea of what has been the direction of the budget. The first highlight of the budget was on very expected lines, which is a bad bank. The NPA crisis remains unresolved. Reserve Bank as a regulator has been pointing out that while the previous NPA crisis remains unresolved, yet another one is ballooning, it is burgeoning in the system. The NPAs on account of COVID are expected to rise in a substantial manner. At the moment, they have not been revealed because of the moratorium that was given by the Reserve Bank, because of the restructuring proposal that came from the Reserve Bank, because the Supreme Court has put a ban on recognizing NPAs beyond August 31st, 2020. But the fact of the matter is, NPAs are rising, particularly in the MSME sector, in retail loans, in household loans, in industrial loans, and also in the credit card unsecured loans of banks. A resolution is needed, and very often it has been suggested that a bad bank is the solution for the NPA crisis of India. We need to carve out the bad loans out of bank balance sheets, put them into a specialized agency in order to ensure that the remaining assets of the banks are clean, they can resume their business of lending, and NPAs can be managed by a specialized agency. In this budget, the government has come up with this proposal. An ARC and an asset management company are proposed to be set up, which will take over the bad loans, the NPAs of banks, and manage them, resolve them, sell them later on, and handle the crisis as a specialized professional agency. So the first one was an NPA resolution bank by way of a bad bank. The second one has been a development financial institution, a DFI as we call it. India does not have a development financial institution for the infrastructure sector in particular. The government announced the setup of a DFI, a development financial institution, with a capital base of 20,000 crores and with an ability to give loans to the tune of 5 lakh crores. This was again on expected lines. The third highlight of today's budget has been increase of FDI limit in insurance companies to 74% from the present limit of 49%. The government expects that international insurance companies and investors will jump into the insurance sector of India and invest in a big way. One of the key thrust areas of the budget, again on expected lines, has been the emphasis on infrastructure spending. The infrastructure spending that is proposed by the government has gone up by 34%, such that against the current financial year's outlay of 4.12 lakh crores, it is now proposed at 5.54 lakh crores, a jump of 34%. The government proposes to spend on roads, on ports, on urban infrastructure by way of metro, bus systems, etc. And the jump in infrastructure spending is expected to create jobs, is expected to give rise to demand, is expected to support industries like steel, cement, etc. So the emphasis on infrastructure was on expected lines. The next highlight of today's budget has been spending on health. It was again expected. The COVID crisis has put a lot of pressure on India's healthcare systems and has also made it very obvious that we need to increase our healthcare spending. It is proposed to go up by 137%. The next highlight is to do with disinvestment, privatization and monetization. The government's target for disinvestment in the current financial year has failed completely. As against the target of 2.1 lakh crores in financial year 2021, the government has managed to raise just about 19,000 crores. But then, the government needs money. Money is needed by the government badly in order to spend on things like infrastructure and to meet the spending demands of the economy. Disinvestment has been always considered to be the way out. It also ensures that the government gets out of the business of being in business where it doesn't need to be. So the finance minister has said that in this current financial year, she expects that disinvestment and privatization of entities like Concor, Air India, BPCL, BEML, and various others will be completed. She expects to raise 1.75 lakh crores in this current financial year by way of disinvestment, which also includes about 70,000 crores to be raised on account of the IPO of LIC. The IPO of LIC was expected last year. The Air India disinvestment was expected last year. So was the case of BPCL. None of them materialized. According to her, they did not materialize because of the COVID crisis. Of course, we beg to differ. If the capital market has been booming, a disinvestment and privatization could also have taken place. That did not take place. It has now been shifted to the next year. Along with disinvestment as a means of raising money, the government also now proposes monetization of its assets in a big way. These include roads, these include airports, these include oil and gas pipelines, these include assets of the government including land in order to raise money and fund its expenditure, particularly on account of infrastructure and capital expenditure. The next highlight of today's budget was the Jal Jeevan Mission announced by the government in order to provide water to the households in India. A sum of 2.87 lakh crores has been laid out for this very critical input that the country needs. A Jal Jeevan Mission we think was needed and the government has come up with it. Yet another interesting highlight of today's budget is that the securities laws, which is the SEBI Act, the Securities Contract Regulation Act, the Government Debt Act and the Depositories Act is all going to be merged in one securities code, and the government also proposes to come out with an investor protection code in order to protect the interests of the investors. We think that these were the major general highlights of today's budget, with a thrust on infrastructure, a thrust on healthcare, and a thrust on the capex of the government towards infrastructure, for which it needs to emphasize on disinvestment, privatization, and monetization of assets. We then come to what is there in the budget for the middle class. As far as the middle class is concerned, it was not too many, but let's go to the highlights. The benefits of affordable housing have been extended by a year. So if you have taken a bank loan and the loan is for an affordable house, the benefit that was given of 1.5 lakh rupees has been extended by 1 year in computing your total income. The affordable housing projects which are tax exempt have also been now extended to 31st March 2022. 1 year extension has been given. For senior citizens who are 75 years and above, they have now been exempt from filing an income tax return, but that is provided their income is from pension or from bank interest. The pre-filled ITRs have been extended to include capital gains and also interest and also dividend income. So when you file your ITR, your income on account of salary, on account of interest, on account of pension, on account of dividend and also on account of capital gains is going to come in a pre-fill form. For the middle class, for the small taxpayer whose income does not exceed 50 lakhs and who's got tax disputes up to 10 lakh rupees, a dispute resolution mechanism is proposed to be set up so that the taxpayer does not get harassed, such that appeals do not come, disputes are not raised, and they get resolved in a peaceful manner. So we are going to now have a dispute resolution scheme for the small taxpayers. Further, the tax audit limit for the small entrepreneur has been enhanced. Any entrepreneur whose income is predominantly in a digital manner, that is, his turnover does not include cash expenses and income exceeding 5% of the turnover, they now have the benefit of tax audit now being extended to 10 crores and above. So if your turnover is below 10 crores and most of your income and expenditure, which is up to at least 95% of it, is by way of digital transactions, then your tax audit limit has been 10 crores and above. Reopening of income tax returns was always a bane for a taxpayer, and reopening, which used to be permitted up to 6 years, has now been limited to 3 years. We think that's a good incentive for any taxpayer. Further, for the middle class, if your employer has not paid his contribution on account of Provident Fund, ESIC, etc., and has deducted provident from your salary and ESIC and has not paid it, then the employer is not going to get a deduction for that payment which he has not made on account of PF, ESIC, etc. The incentives which were given for startup enterprises, where many a middle class entrepreneur has been involved, have been extended by 1 year. Another significant measure which comes for the middle class is related to DICGC. Your deposits with banks are secure to the tune of 5 lakh rupees. But then getting that money from DICGC was very cumbersome. Until a bank had not closed down, you did not get it, and the process was long. Now, wherever there is a temporary problem that the bank faces and your deposits are held up, it is proposed to amend the DICGC Act such that you can go to DICGC and claim your bank deposits up to 5 lakh rupees. We think that's a positive measure. And the most important, no new taxes have been proposed for the middle class, or for that matter for anybody. Tax rates have been kept constant. These, we think, are the highlights of the budget proposals for the middle class. Now let's come to the stock market in particular. The stock market is booming. It has received the budget very well. And that's because there are a number of measures which have come in the budget which are good for the capital markets, or at least good for the stock market to continue its irrational exuberance. The first one, the budget is an expansionist budget. The finance minister says that as against last year's proposed expenditure, which is the current financial year's proposed expenditure of about 30.5 lakh crores, in this budget for the coming financial year, she proposes an expenditure of 34.83 lakh crores. It's an expansionist budget. It's a budget where the government will continue to spend, hoping that growth is revived, demand is revived. And that also reflects on the fiscal deficit which is going to be shown in the current and the coming financial year. For the stock market, an expansionist budget is always good news. The second one why the stock market is looking up is the increase in the FDI limits for the insurance sector from 49% to 74%. The next is, of course, the incentive given now for FPIs. The stock market has been booming because of money which has been pouring in from foreign portfolio investors. They have been pouring in money at the rate of almost 1,000 crores a day. That has fueled a boom in the stock markets. To further incentivize FPI coming in the market, the government says that FPIs can take the benefit of the respective tax treaties in respect of taxation of dividend. Thus, any FPI can offer or choose to ensure that its dividend income is taxed as per the income tax rate or the treaty rate, whichever is lower, and get the benefit of lower taxes. For the stock market, no change in tax rates is always good. The status quo certainly is good for the tax market, especially at a time when some experts were expecting that the rich are going to be taxed by way of a one-time tax to meet the COVID expenditure. So we have no wealth tax, no estate duty coming in, as some experts were expecting. Further, the cheer in the stock market is because of the big disinvestment portfolio that the finance minister has committed for the coming financial year. She says that Air India will be privatized, Concor will be privatized, the BPCL will be privatized, and many other PSUs. That means good for the stock markets. They are going to have more entities being privatized and listed. In particular, LIC is going to be listed. The market, of course, has boomed. The capital expenditure focus of the government in the budget certainly means good. It means that the quality of expenditure by the government is going to be better. The stock market likes it, and that is showing in the Sensex today, which has gone up substantially. The FDI on infrastructure will continue as per the proposal that have come from the finance minister. Further, bank recapitalization the current financial year has been pegged at 20,000 crores. When I say current financial year, I am referring to financial year 21-22. Unlike the earlier years, when bank recapitalization was of a huge amount, this time it is proposed at just about 20,000 crores. Perhaps it indicates that bank health has gone better, and the PSBs, the public sector banks, do not need further support from the government. That's, of course, a good measure that has been announced. Further, what has enthused the markets is something interesting, and it has to do with fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit in this financial year 2021 is pegged at 9.5% by the Government of India. That means the government has spent, and as per the estimate for the coming financial year 21-22, it is expected to be at 6.8%. It shows that the government is going to continue to spend to support economic growth. Of course, good news for the market. And because of this status of the fiscal deficit at 6.8% for the coming financial year, the expenditure in financial year 21-22 has been pegged at 34.83 crores by the finance minister. This spending spree of the government, this willingness of the government to spend despite its treasury being empty, certainly it gives news for the economy and for the market, because only if the government spend, it is expected that growth would come back. From survival, we would shift to a revival mode. So how do we look at the budget and how do we see it? To us, it has been what we would call a tick in the box budget. A tick in the box for some items and a tick in the box not for some items. It was widely expected that spending on health is going to go up. That's what we have seen. It's gone up by almost 140%. It was widely expected that spending on infrastructure would go up. It's gone up by 35%. A development financial institution was expected, and that is what the government is proposing to set up, such as to be able to fund loans to the tune of 5 lakh crores with an initial capital of 20,000 crores. We were expecting a bad bank. A bad bank has also been announced. It was very widely again expected on very expected lines that disinvestment, privatization and monetization of government assets is going to take place in a big way in order to fund the government expenditure. That has also been seen. The FPIs were expected to be again given a favorable treatment such that the foreign portfolio investor does not desert the Indian capital markets, and so that dividend treatment under the treaties is meant to be a kind of a relaxation or concession for the foreign portfolio investors. And we were expecting no new tax will come on the middle class, which is already so burdened, and that did not come. So it was a tick in the box item, budget for many items. Where it did not tick, and which is where our problem lies, is the crisis that we face. The budget doesn't seem to have come up with anything specific on certain crises which are very important and which need to be resolved. The first one, joblessness. Jobs have not come back. Unemployment continues in a big way. It stands at 9.1%, which is extremely high. The budget does not come up with anything very specific in terms of tackling joblessness. It is expected that infrastructure spending will meet the problem of joblessness, but we think there is no specific measure. It might just not prove to be enough. In the current financial year 21-22, by the government's own claim, the expenditure on infrastructure, capital expenditure has been very high, but jobs have not come back. And thus, there is no guarantee that next year, with a higher spending, jobs will come back. So the key crisis that impacts especially the middle class, which is joblessness, no specific measures for it. The second one, no specific measures for triggering fresh investment in the economy. Until investment is not triggered up, neither will jobs come back, nor will consumer demand come back. No specific mention of measures in order to incentivize and trigger fresh investments in the economy. Similarly, the government does not talk about continuation of fiscal stimulus in a big way. We think it is needed. In case we need to reset the economy from what we call survival to revival, we will need a continuation of the fiscal stimulus. Nothing spoken about that. And finally, we continue to pay extremely high diesel and petrol prices. Auto fuel taxes have been at an all-time high. The government, the budget speaks nothing about it. So, tick in the box on some items, but no tick in the box on some crucial items. And that is what bothers us. We need to tackle the joblessness crisis in a huge way. We need to get back our investments. We need to get back consumer demand. And unless we don't get that back, perhaps all the measures that the government has announced in the current budget will not yield results. And that's where we think the problem lies. This is Akhilesh Bhargav signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.
Hello everyone. HW News English is 2 years old now. When we started this venture, we promised ourselves one thing, that news should remain free, because right to know is the right of every Indian. But to keep news free for everyone, we need support from some of you. And thus we have rolled out membership on our YouTube channel HW News English. But mind you, the membership is completely voluntary. The programs that we were doing earlier, that we are doing now, will continue to remain free. first level is a basic level. Here, you can be our supporter by paying rupees 199 per month. This membership gives you certain perks and benefits. The perks include unique badges in front of your name, a live show from Mr. Sujit Nair and from Mr. Akhilesh Bhargava per month for our members. You can also vote in some exclusive members-only polls. Now the second level is Super Supporter. Here you can be our Super Supporter by paying rupees 3,999 per month. This membership will include every perk that comes with basic level. Additionally, our Super Supporters can be a part of a WhatsApp group where we can have discussions and suggestions on various topics. The second perk includes a gift pack with our merchandise. And the third perk is a Google Meet with Mr. Sujit Nair, where you can join the meet and ask your questions to Mr. Nair face to face. Lastly, if you like, we would give a shout out to our super supporters in our programs. So, hope to see you soon with our badges.